The council chamber on Zalara was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the somber voice of Elder Varric. The holographic displays flickered with images of their cities in ruins, the aftermath of the latest Cryptar attack. The room, usually a place of vibrant debate and decision-making, now reflected the despair of a dying civilization. "We've done all we can," Elder Varric sighed, addressing the assembly of Zalarian leaders. "Our defenses can't withstand another assault. Without help, our civilization is at the brink of extinction." Commander Tolan, the military head, stood from his seat, his face etched with frustration. "Our weapons are ineffective, and our soldiers are overwhelmed. We've heard rumors of powerful allies in the cosmos, but none have responded to our pleas for aid." As the leaders debated their grim options, a junior officer rushed into the chamber, a message tablet in hand. "Elders, we've intercepted a transmission. It's not from the Cryptars." The room's atmosphere shifted slightly, curiosity peaking amidst the despair. Varric motioned for the officer to continue. "It's a human spacecraft, the Vanguard. They've received our distress signal and are en route to Zalara. They're offering assistance." Commander Tolan exchanged a skeptical look with Varric. Humans were known in the galaxy, but more for their curiosity than their might. Humans. What aid can they possibly offer against the Cryptars? Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, Captain Michael Reed reviewed the Zalarian plea with his second-in-command, Lieutenant Jacobs. The audio from Zalara played again in the small utilitarian command office, the desperation clear even through the static. Jacobs was hesitant. "Sir, are we sure about this? Our last mission was tough enough, and Earth Command isn't exactly encouraging heroics that don't serve direct Earth interests." Reed, a seasoned explorer and soldier, had seen many civilizations. Something in the Zalarian's message struck a chord within him, a reminder of his own battles, both in space and within himself. "Jake, I've spent my career watching worlds bend under threats. We might be what stands between these people and annihilation. We're going." Back on Zalara, as the news of the humans' arrival spread, the council chamber buzzed with a mix of hope and doubt. Varric addressed Commander Tolan and the assembly. "Prepare to meet with Captain Reed upon his arrival. Let's assess what the humans can offer. We have little to lose at this point." The leaders nodded in agreement, their desperation making the decision clear. If help was coming, they would embrace it, albeit cautiously. As the Vanguard approached Zalara, the crew prepared for what might be their most challenging mission yet. Reed stood at the helm, watching the star-streaked space give way to the blue and green orb of Zalara ahead. "Approaching Zalara," announced the helmsman. "All systems go for orbital entry." Reed turned to Jacobs, his resolve firm. "Let's see what we can do for these people, Jake. Prepare the crew for potential combat and humanitarian aid." Jacobs nodded, the weight of their undertaking settling in. "Yes, sir. Let's hope we're what they need." As the Vanguard entered Zalara's orbit, the Zalarians gathered, watching the skies, their anxiety mixed with a fragile thread of hope. The arrival of the Vanguard could mark the end of their despair or the beginning of something even more catastrophic. Captain Michael Reed stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, his eyes fixed on the viewport as the ship descended through the swirling clouds of Zalara. The planet's surface, marred by scars of recent battles, was a sobering sight. Beside him, Lieutenant Jacobs monitored the communications console intently. "We're being hailed by the Zalarian Council, Captain," Jacobs announced, adjusting the frequency. "Put them through," Reed ordered, his voice steady despite the churn of apprehension. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a group of Zalarian leaders with Elder Varric at the forefront. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of his people's suffering. "Captain Reed, welcome to Zalara. We are in your debt for heeding our call." Reed nodded respectfully. "Elder Varric, we understand your situation is dire. My team is ready to assist. What can you tell us about the enemy's tactics and your defense capabilities?" Varric exchanged a glance with Commander Tolan, who stepped forward. "The Cryptars use overwhelming force, striking our power centers and population hubs. Our shields are depleted and our weaponry is outmatched." Reed turned to his tactical officer, Sergeant Flynn, who had been analyzing the data. "Sergeant, your assessment?" Flynn looked up from his station. "Sir, their technology is behind ours by a couple of generations. I recommend we deploy ground units to reinforce their defenses and set up anti-aircraft turrets around their key facilities." "Do it," Reed directed, then addressed the Zalarian leaders again. "We'll start by fortifying your capital city. We can also train your forces in guerrilla tactics, hit and run, ambush, that sort of thing. It'll give you a fighting chance." Varick's face showed the first hint of hope. Your knowledge and support are more than we could have hoped for, Captain. How soon can you deploy your teams? Immediately, Reed confirmed. Lieutenant Jacobs, coordinate with Commander Tolan to begin operations. I want boots on the ground within the hour. Jacobs nodded, tapping commands into his console. I'll get our teams ready. Sergeant Flynn, you're with me. We'll need your expertise to set up the defense grid. As preparations for the deployment continued, Reed walked to the Vanguard's hangar bay, where troops and equipment were being readied. Among them, he spotted Specialist Elena Martinez, a skilled engineer known for her quick thinking in the field. Martinez, you're with the first team, Reed called out. Focus on getting their shields online. We can't afford any more civilian losses. Martinez saluted crisply. Yes, sir. We'll make sure they hold. Back on the bridge, as Zalara's reddish terrain grew closer, Reed felt the weight of command heavier than ever. This mission was not just about military aid. It was about restoring hope to a people on the brink of extinction. The Vanguard touched down on Zalara's surface, kicking up clouds of dust. As the ramp lowered, Reed led his team out, met by a contingent of Zalarian soldiers. Their expressions, weary and wary, spoke volumes, but so did their determination to defend their home. With a nod to his team, Reed stepped forward to begin their daunting task, ready to change the tide of war on Zalara. Under the gray skies of Zalara, Captain Michael Reed and his team swiftly implemented their strategy to bolster the Zalarian defenses. They set up their base in the outskirts of Zalara's capital city, where the scars of battle were fresh and the need for aid was most desperate. Captain, the perimeter defenses are almost in place, reported Specialist Martinez as she supervised the installation of the last set of anti-aircraft turrets. These should help keep their fighters at bay for now. Reed nodded, observing the human troops working alongside Zalarian forces to fortify the area. Good work, Martinez. Keep me posted on any adjustments needed. Lieutenant Jacobs approached with an update, his face serious. Sir, I've been coordinating with Commander Tolan. He's impressed with the guerrilla tactics we've introduced. The Zalarians are adapting quickly. That's exactly what we need, Jacobs. Tell Tolan to keep pushing these tactics. The more unpredictable they can be, the better, Reed responded, his strategic mind already thinking ahead. Meanwhile, small squads of Earth's troops, led by Sergeant Flynn, began training Zalarian soldiers in the art of guerrilla warfare. They conducted drills in the ruins around the city, teaching them how to use the environment to their advantage, how to execute ambushes, and how to disappear without a trace. Flynn, demonstrating a rapid retreat strategy, shouted over the sound of simulated gunfire. Speed is your ally. Hit hard and fade away before they know what hit them. As the training continued, the Zalarians' confidence grew. They started to see possibilities where they had once seen only inevitable defeat. This shift in morale was palpable, spreading through their ranks like a rejuvenating force. Back at the command center, Reed met with his senior staff to assess their progress. We're making good headway on the ground, but we need to be ready for the Cryptar's next move. They won't sit back for long, he cautioned them. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the camp. An urgent report came from one of the lookout posts. Cryptar ships spotted approaching from the east. Looks like a significant force. Reed immediately switched to command mode. All units, to your battle stations. Jacobs, coordinate with the Zalarians. Flynn, get your squads into position. We can use what we've taught them right now. The Cryptars, not expecting any serious resistance, were met with a barrage of fire from the newly installed turrets and well-placed guerrilla attacks. The sky lit up with the explosions of enemy crafts shot down before they could reach the city. The battle raged into the night, but the fortified defenses held strong. The Cryptars, confused and outmaneuvered, eventually withdrew, leaving behind a sense of victory among the Zalarians. In the aftermath, Reed walked among his troops and their new Zalarian allies, offering words of praise and encouragement. Today you've shown that you are not just survivors, but warriors, he told them. You've earned a victory today, but the war isn't over. Stay vigilant. The Zalarians, inspired by their success, rallied even more firmly around the leadership of Reed and their commanders. They began to believe that, perhaps with the help of these humans, all hope was not lost after all. The successful defense against the Cryptar onslaught invigorated the Zalarian forces. Under Captain Michael Reed's leadership, they grew more adept at guerrilla tactics, which slowly shifted the war's momentum in their favor. In Earth's makeshift command center on Zalara, Reed plotted the next critical phase of their strategy. We've got them rattled, but we can't just stay on the defensive, Reed declared to his senior officers. It's time to go on the offensive. We strike at their supply lines and communication nodes, cut off their resources, and we cut off their ability to fight effectively. Lieutenant Jacobs nodded, pulling up a holographic map of the region. We've identified several key targets. Their main resupply station here, he pointed to a glowing dot on the map, is lightly guarded at night. It's an opportunity we can't miss. Specialist Martinez chimed in, her eyes scanning the layout. I can rig up some explosive devices that will do maximum damage with minimal risk to our troops. Hit them hard and fast, then vanish before they can mount a response. Reed approved the plan with a firm nod. Excellent. Martinez, prepare your charges. Jacobs, get the strike teams ready. We move out at 0300 hours. As night fell on Zalara, the human-led strike teams moved out silently, using the cover of darkness to approach the Cryptar resupply station. The operation was swift. Martinez's explosives were placed strategically, demolishing the station in a series of controlled blasts that lit up the night sky. Back at the command center, reports of the successful strike flooded in, along with surveillance feeds showing the extent of the damage. Reed watched, knowing this was a significant blow to the Cryptar war effort. Their supply chain is disrupted, and our intel suggests it's caused a panic among their ranks, Jacobs reported, a hint of satisfaction in his tone. Reed, while pleased, remained focused. Stay alert. They'll retaliate, and we must be ready. Increase patrols around all our positions and prepare our defenses. The expected Cryptar retaliation came swiftly. Large enemy forces launched a series of aggressive attacks across several fronts, trying desperately to regain their footing. However, Earth's troops, now well integrated with Zalarian units, held strong. The defensive lines, reinforced by Earth's advanced weaponry and tactics, repelled each assault, inflicting heavy losses on the Cryptar forces. As the dust settled after several days of intense fighting, the balance of power had clearly shifted. The Zalarians, once on the brink of defeat, now held the upper hand, controlling key territories and cutting off Cryptar reinforcements. Reed convened with his team to assess the situation. We've turned the tide, but we can't let up now. We need to keep the pressure on, push them back, and secure more strategic locations. The campaign continued, with human and Zalarian forces working seamlessly together, launching coordinated attacks against remaining Cryptar strongholds. Each victory brought Zalara closer to liberation, and the bond between Earth's soldiers and their alien allies deepened, forged in the fires of shared combat. In the war room, Reed reviewed the latest battle plans, his face set in determination. This is more than just a fight for Zalara's freedom. It's a statement to the galaxy that tyranny can be challenged, that together we are stronger. Let's finish this. The relentless campaign led by Captain Michael Reed and his combined Earth-Zalarian forces had pushed the Cryptar military back to their primary command center on Zalara. It was a massive fortress, heavily fortified and bristling with advanced weaponry. It represented the last bastion of Cryptar power on the planet. In the early hours of the morning, Reed gathered his top officers for a final briefing in the war room. The air was tense, each person aware of the battle's significance not just for Zalara, but as a symbol of resistance across the galaxy. Today we take the Cryptar Command Center, Reed announced, his voice resolute. This is their final stronghold. We break them here, we break them for good. Lieutenant Jacobs, who had been instrumental in planning the assaults, outlined their strategy. We'll execute a three-pronged attack. Ground forces led by Specialist Martinez will breach the eastern perimeter using the cover of the forest. Air support will neutralize their defense turrets, while a diversionary force keeps them engaged on the western front. Specialist Martinez added, I've prepared a series of EMPs to disrupt their electronic defenses temporarily. It should give us enough time to penetrate their outer walls and get our troops inside. Reed nodded, turning his attention to Sergeant Flynn, who would lead the diversionary tactics. Flynn, your job is crucial. Keep them focused on you, but avoid heavy engagement. We can't afford significant casualties. Sergeant Flynn saluted sharply. Understood, sir. We'll keep them busy. As the sun rose over Zalara, the air was filled with the roar of aircraft and the distant echoes of artillery. The battle for the Cryptar Command Center had begun. Martinez's team stealthily navigated the forest, reaching the eastern perimeter. At her signal, the EMPs detonated, sending sparks and a momentary wave of silence over the fortress as its defenses faltered. With a fierce cry, Martinez led her team forward, cutting through the disoriented Cryptar soldiers. Explosions rocked the fortress walls, creating breaches that Earth and Zalarian soldiers exploited, pouring into the fortress with determined ferocity. Above, Earth's fighter jets swooped down, targeting the Cryptar turrets that had begun to come back online. Each strike was precise, allowing the ground forces to advance deeper into the fortress. Meanwhile, Flynn's team executed their part flawlessly, drawing sizable Cryptar forces away from the main battle and into the western woods, where the terrain worked in the defenders' favor. Inside the command center, Reed and his team fought their way toward the central control room. It was a brutal fight, each corridor and room fiercely contested. Reed, leading from the front, was a constant presence, directing, encouraging, and fighting alongside his troops. Finally, they breached the control room, where the Cryptar commanders, surprised and overwhelmed, surrendered. As the last of them were secured, Reed communicated the victory to his forces and the Zalarian leaders. "We've done it," he declared over the comms, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and triumph. "The command center is ours." Cheers erupted both on the field and across Zalara. The Cryptar occupation was broken, their last stronghold captured. The Zalarians, once on the verge of despair, celebrated their freedom, their joy mixed with profound gratitude toward the humans who had stood by them. Reed watched as Zalarians and humans embraced, their shared victory a testament to their unity and strength. The battle had been hard fought, but it had brought forth a new era for Zalara, one filled with hope and the promise of peace. In the aftermath of their resounding victory, the atmosphere in Zalara's capital was electric with celebration and a profound sense of relief. Flags of both Zalara and Earth fluttered in the breeze, symbolizing the unity that had led to their triumph. Captain Michael Reed, now seen as a hero both by his own crew and the Zalarian populace, stood on a makeshift stage in the city square, preparing to address the crowd. As Reed stepped up to the podium, the cheers crescendoed, echoing off the rebuilt structures that once lay in ruins. He cleared his throat, waiting for the jubilation to subside before he began to speak. Today marks not just a victory for Zalara against the Cryptar threat, but a celebration of spirit, determination, and the strength that comes from unity, Reed began, his voice resonant and clear. When we arrived, all hope seemed lost, but together we turned despair into defiance, and defeat into victory. Around him, faces, both human and Zalarian, beamed with pride and newfound confidence. Beside him stood Elder Varric and several other Zalarian leaders, their expressions one of deep respect and gratitude toward the man who had led the defense of their world. Elder Varric stepped forward, his voice strong as he addressed the assembly. "Captain Reed and the brave men and women of Earth, you came to us as strangers, but now stand as family. You have not only saved our world, but have also taught us the true meaning of courage. We are forever in your debt." Reed nodded humbly, then continued. "Our journey doesn't end here. While we've secured Zalara from the Cryptar menace, the path to rebuilding remains long. We will continue to stand with you, to support you as you rebuild your world, just as you have supported us in this battle." The crowd erupted in applause, the sound ringing across the city and into the starlit night. After the formalities, Reed mingled among the Zalarians, sharing stories, laughter, and plans for the future. Discussions flowed around the establishment of a new defense protocol for Zalara, leveraging human technology and strategic insights to ensure the planet's security. Meanwhile, Reed's crew, who had fought tirelessly on the front lines, took part in the celebrations, their bonds with the Zalarians growing stronger with each shared experience. Specialist Martinez and Lieutenant Jacobs, who had been instrumental in the victory, were surrounded by young Zalarian soldiers eager to hear tales of Earth and learn from their expertise. As the celebrations eventually wound down, Reed took a moment for himself, stepping away from the bustling crowd to look up at the stars. He reflected on the journey. The battles fought, the friends lost, and the new alliances forged. The weight of command that had once felt so burdensome now felt like a mantle he was proud to bear. The next morning, as the Vanguard prepared to depart, Reed met with Elder Varric one last time. "Keep the communications lines open," Reed advised. "We'll be watching, ready to assist, but I have a feeling you'll be teaching us a few things next time we meet." With a final salute to the Zalarian leaders, Captain Michael Reed boarded the Vanguard, the ship lifting off from Zalara amidst waves and cheers. As the ship ascended, Reed looked back at the planet, a symbol of what could be achieved when humanity reached out, not for conquest, but for camaraderie and defense of the innocent. Back on Earth, news of the victory and the heroics of the Vanguard's crew spread quickly, igniting discussions about humanity's role on the galactic stage. As Earth prepared to embrace its new position as a defender of justice in the cosmos, Reed and his crew readied themselves for whatever challenge came next, secure in the knowledge that they had changed the course of history for one distant world.